just to go back to Djiga, I mean, I remember writing a story just after, I think it was ahead of the Hibs away game, just after New Year, saying that he was going to be back for that, he was going to be back fit and available. And I remember we went online reading the comments from Rangers fans saying, don't need him, you know, send him back to Wolves. I mean, at that point, you think he'd had a couple of games, I think an Old Firm game where he'd looked really, really shaky, really, a Bombscare material, frankly. And then, he'd also went off to AFCON, and during that period, that's when Manny Fernandez sort of really emerged as a proper option at the back. And to see him come back into the team has been a surprise to me, because I just thought it was going to be Souttar and Fernandez to the end of the season. But I think you've seen, obviously, John Souttar's form's dipped. I mean, I thought when he came on at the Old Firm game last week, as nervous a display I think I've ever seen from John Souttar. I mean, I think you're going back to his Dundee United days when he had that sort of identity crisis. Was he a holding midfielder? Was he a fullback? Was he a centre-back? And that's the last time I can remember. He's always had the odd mistake in him, and frankly, he wouldn't still be at Rangers if he didn't have those lapses in him. But he was so off the boil, and it was in such stark contrast to Djiga, who I thought had strolled the 90 minutes before he came off in extra time, and it was as solid and as dependable and as composed as a performance I think I can remember from, because I think he's always had a mistake in him as well.
Yeah.
So he's really hitting form. I mean, is that taking you by surprise in the same way it has me?
It has. I've just written a piece for the paper the day saying exactly that. I mean, it just shows you how things can change. I mean, Djiga and Fernandez were pretty much written off by Rangers fans, I think, at the start of the season. I mean, different situations. Djiga was in the team right away. I mean, I was looking at the games he'd played in today. I mean, he had a nightmare start to his Rangers career. He got sent off against Dundee at home. He was part of the team that got battered in Bruges that night, 6-0 when we were there.
Was it him and Butland were at fault for the catastrophic goal at home early on in the Bruges game as well, I'm sure?
That's right. He got hooked at half-time against Hearts when Rangers lost at home to Hearts, and he actually went out the team after that Hearts game. He only really got back in when Danny Rowe came in as manager, but even then, as you say, that game, the semi-final, League Cup semi-final against Celtic at Hampden, he looked an absolute bag of nerves that day. And you just thought then, I've said in the piece, I mean, if this says to Rangers fans then, who's your main defensive partnership first choice, they would have said Souttar and Derek Cornelius. Basically, those were the two. Fernandez, on the other hand, was a bit different. He just didn't play initially. I know Russell Martin mentioned it last night in his interview that he knew that kind of Fernandez coming in for Peterborough wouldn't play right away and was kind of biding his time with him, but he was out the team. I think he had a couple of wee niggles. He scored in his debut against Alloa, you'll remember, and they actually kept him in the team for the next game away to St Mirren, ironically, and he was poor that day. Ayunga and Mandron...
responsible for losing a goal then, he sort of misjudged a ball.
That's right. Ayunga and Mandron kind of bullied him, and he showed his kind of inexperience, and again, he was then kind of out until Rowe came in. I think Rowe put him in against Hibs away, and he's just kept on since then. But so you've gone for that, and I was guilty of it as well. I probably thought at that time, like, these two aren't quite up to it. And the turnaround, and the two of them I think deserve massive credit for how they've developed. And I look at Djiga now, and I mean, on Sunday, it might seem like a daft thing, but very early on in the game, it must have been the first 30 seconds of a minute. A long ball got played down the side of him. St Mirren looking to get in behind, and Lunderloo was chasing him down. And I'm convinced back in August, September, Djiga would have tried to control it, try to turn, pass it inside, or try to do something with it to keep the ball. Honestly, on Sunday, listen, the conditions maybe played a part as well. The ball just got knocked in behind him. He chased it down and just knocked it out of the park. And just knocked it out for a throw into St Mirren. And that told me that he's at least learned. I think he's learned on the job in Scottish football, and I do think he's got a lot better. I mean, I hope I'm not speaking too soon and he goes and makes a mistake at the weekend, but he's been rock solid the last few weeks. Him and Fernandez look good beside each other. Fernandez, I think, just keeps taking his game up a notch every week. He's growing in confidence. The thing I like about Fernandez, as I've said to you before, whenever we've interviewed him, when he's been asked about what kind of parts of his game he has to improve on, he's always admitted that focus and concentration are the main aspects. And that's always been my view on Fernandez, that if he can cut out the wee lapses in concentration, then he could be a top defender. And I think it's encouraging that he himself recognised that and has made those improvements in his game. And
I think you can see them already. He's becoming a leader in the team.
Yeah,
I think a guy who, he's 24, but probably hadn't played that much comparatively to other guys of his age. He's obviously been down far down the sort of English football ladder. 7th tier at one point. But I think he's grown, and he's a big guy, big stature, but I think he's a big personality in the dressing room as well. And you can see that he's, it's not that he's shouting and bawling at his teammates, but I think he's prepared to hold them to a standard and to demand more from them and to criticise when guys aren't doing what they should be doing. I think you've seen that already, that he's somebody that's not scared to voice an opinion on the pitch. And I think that's the encouraging thing. What you want a guy of his talent is to then raise the levels of the guys around him as much as himself. And I think you have seen that. I think you've seen that he wants to be somebody that is not just somebody who performs himself. He wants to try and drag the team along with him. I think you've definitely seen that since he came in.